Tony D and Little Joan just off camera, and this is a screenwriter's take on Unfrosted, starring Jerry Seinfeld, Melissa McCarthy, Bill Burr, Thomas Lennon, Amy Schumer, just about everybody in comedies in this movie. So I'm going to break down, as always, the non-spoiler review, and then I'll give you the spoiler review where we talk about what's in each act and how this movie played out. Smash a like and subscribe. Thank you for smash liking and subscribing. Check out my books. The links are in the description. Comedy Horror in South Jersey. It's the Pineys, books 1 through 14. Available at Amazon.com. Don't forget, Kindle Unlimited is free. So, overall, non-spoiler review, it's pretty good. Pretty watchable. It's on Netflix. If I had to give it a 1 to 10, it lands about 7.5, maybe 8. There's some genuine laughs in this. It's pretty good. It's only about 90 minutes. Oh, Christian Slater's in it. Peter Dinklage. So there's a lot of people in this. They all get something funny to do. It breaks down a little bit towards the end. But other than that, it's fine. They have it's very PG-13. I would say it would be G-rated back in the day. I don't think there was a single dirty scene in it. And it's very much based on Seinfeld's stand-up and stuff he's talked about in the past. It's anybody could watch this movie, I think. It's funny. It's funny. Now, it's a little dated because, again, when you have the sort of member berries, and Jerry Seinfeld's older than me, so a lot of the member berries he puts in are stuff from his childhood, stuff that he remembers, but a lot of it will transfer over because there's a lot of product-based jokes in the movie. A couple historical jokes as well. It takes place in the early 60s. It's supposed to mirror the race to the moon. So, maybe some of the younger fans wouldn't get a lot of it. But I think overall it's pretty funny. And I think most people would. There'd be some people who'd be kind of lost. The kind of people who don't remember landlines and some of the real basic history that the movie kind of goes over. At least it's basic to me. Might just be lost. They might just go, oh, okay, whatever. But I think overall it's worth watching. So yeah, about 7.5, 8. Some very silly stuff is in it too. But that's to be expected in a comedy like this. The energy's pretty good. He did a good job directing it. Every scene at least has a point to make comedy, and there's an overall explanation of why all this wacky stuff happens anyway. So, all right, let me break down and clarify everything I just said in in the spoiler review. And we'll break it down. So if you want to see it, it's on Netflix. Go see it, and then maybe come back to this point in the video. All right, so let's break it down. What happens? The first act, Jerry is Bob Cabana working at Kellogg's as an executive, and Kellogg's is crushing Post, their rival company, in the cereal breakfast wars. And it's Jim Gaffigan as the CEO of Kellogg's, and Amy Schumer as the head of Post. And they have this rivalry, and Kellogg's is just crushing them. They're beating them at the cereal awards, which is funny. That's a funny scene. There's also some fake cereals mixed in through the movie, which are fun. So the first act is, this is the way life is going during the cereal wars. Kellogg's is just winning and winning. But Amy Schumer's got some kind of secret plan, and they suspect it, but they don't know what it is. And then Bob stumbles upon the secret. The secret, of course, is that they've developed over at Post some sort of stable pastry that they're going to start selling and take over breakfast, which is the steaks, right? And of course, Amy Schumer's kind of the bad guy, and so she stole the research that Bob did when they tried to make a pastry, but of course that didn't work and they abandoned it, but Post took it up and they made it work, and now they're going to release a pastry to the public, and Kellogg's has to beat them in the race. So in order to do that, Bob goes to Jim Gaffigan and says, I need my old partner Stan, who's played by Melissa McCarthy, and her last name is Stankowski or something, and that's why they call her Stan. So she's working for NASA, and then there's some funny, because the movie takes place in the early 60s, there's some funny sort of historical jokes that you would only get kind of if you sort of know the history and then sort of know what came after. So again, I think most people would get it. I think you would have to be older, though. I don't think kids would get it. Some of the stuff is silly enough. I think the kids would enjoy it, but maybe little kids they'd just be like, what? So they're going to they get Stan, and they're going to start this race to build the Pop-Tart. And then a bunch of crazy stuff happens, and they bring in experts, and there's a million cameos in this movie. Thomas Lennon's, I think, is one of the funniest ones because he's just very funny. You know, there's all sorts of product jokes. And then the big third act, or the big climax of the whole thing, is they have to get the Pop-Tart sort of stamped as a product to get shelf space, while at the same time a bunch of other things are happening. The mascots are on strike. Amy Schumer was forced to go to the Russians to get sugar, so then the president gets involved, and that's Bill Burr's cameo as the president, which is pretty funny. And then you know, he gets involved because he wants Kellogg's to win the battle, because he doesn't want the Russians to you know, have Cuban sugar on American plates. And so the big climax is they finally release the Pop-Tart, and it's a huge hit. The end. And then at the very, very end, they have like a almost like in a Bollywood movie, they play a song and the whole cast is dancing and singing. Not really singing, but kind of lip syncing. That I didn't like. I mean, it's okay. It's not offensive or anything. It's just sort of like, I don't want to see this. But it was fun. I mean, everybody's has fun scenes. I mean, Peter Dinklage and Christian Slater as the milkmen were funny. Everything was very amusing and funny. Andrew Daly as the Quaker Oats guy. And the nice thing about it, too, is Jerry doesn't beat any of the bits to death. He uses them as much as he can, and then that's it. Like, you know, like the Quaker Oats guy, eventually they just run out of bits for him, and he's done. You know, it gets very silly by the late in the second act, you know, when one of the testers, Schwinn, is killed in testing the Pop-Tart because it's just such a ridiculous setup of why he's killed. Jack LaLanne being there is crazy, and Carvel, and so all these great, and the living ravioli. But the way it's framed is that Jerry Seinfeld's character, Bob, is telling the story to a kid who's run away from home. He's basically trying to stall him until his parents can be brought in and take him home. So he's telling him this elaborate story about Pop-Tarts because he works for the Pop-Tart company. So you can justify the entire movie by the fact that, like, well, Bob's just telling a story, and he may have made some of it up. Oh, and another great cameo is, the two guys from the old John Hamm show. What the hell was that called? I forget what it was called now. Oh God. Oh, the show that made John Hamm famous. The one about advertisers. Those guys make a great cameo. So that's kind of a fun moment. That bit goes on a little long though. But other than that, overall the bits just keep coming. Different cameos. They play a lot of music in this movie. A lot of old music, which I enjoyed. And it was generally fun. Generally fun. I mean, towards the end, I was getting a little tired, but the energy seemed to slow down a bit. It kind of almost peaks a little bit in the scene with Jim Gaffigan and Amy Schumer secretly being lovers, and then, like, for whatever reason, I forget why, what happens. Oh yeah, Amy Schumer sees the living ravioli and gets turned off. And that's basically the end of that whole sequence of them. Like, they don't get married or anything. There's no, nothing really political in it. Except there's this one bit, which I noticed. But I think it's not meant to be any kind of political jab. Just it's kind of an interesting fact that the woman who ran Post and became a female CEO was kind of a feminist icon, and she built Mar-a-Lago, the place that Trump owns now. So I thought that was kind of funny. So yeah, Jerry here has really built a nice comedy film that I think most people can enjoy. And it's I thought some of the bits were pretty good. I remember most of these products. I'm old enough to remember the products, and not really the time period per se, but at least enough of the products and enough of the era that I can get through it. I question though whether anybody under the age of 20 would really get a lot of the jokes. This isn't Seinfeld, but I think it's great to have a nice movie like this because, you watch it, you get some laughs, and then you kind of feel good at the end of it. It's so many of the movies that come out they're so dreary or too serious. This movie absolutely does not take itself serious. It's very silly, and fun bits like Bill Burr as the president, as JFK, and making side comments about the Kennedys, and Andy Daly as the Quaker Oats guy being super religious. Like, all these are great bits. Thomas Lennon's, like, obviously an ex-German, I'll say, from a certain war, and that's kind of fun. It's all mixed into a fun movie that keeps moving fast enough. I think the pacing could have been a little more frantic, and there seems to be some scenes that they cut out of the movie that they then jammed on at the end, which I'm kind of wondering what happened to those scenes and why did they shoot them, and like what were the scenes, and like so there's this one scene with the two kids. They steal a truckload of Pop-Tarts. So I don't know if they just shot that so they could throw in a clip from the trailer, but it was kind of funny. But then I was thinking, like, well, what was that scene? The kids steal the Pop-Tart truck? Is it a dream sequence? And even though I'm kind of old enough to get most of the jokes, there was one bit I'm not sure if it's real or not, and that is, did Pop-Tarts and Post have an actual rivalry? Was there another product that Post developed that didn't work, that Pop-Tarts beat? I don't even know. I'll have to look it up after I shoot this video. But yeah, overall, I think you could do a lot worse than this movie, and you know, for the stuff on Netflix, yeah, this is pretty top tier for Netflix, you know. And I hope Jerry makes some more movies. Um, this is, yeah, this is a fun little thing, and like everybody in the movie is pretty good, you know. I gotta hand it to Jerry. He made Amy Schumer funny. He made, you know, all these people funny. Well, I shouldn't say he made them funny. He brought out their funniness. You know, he gave them an opportunity to be funny. Bill Burr's situation is very funny. I mean, everybody got their time and a chance to do something hilarious, at least in one scene. I read an article that Hugh Grant was difficult to work with. He gets a lot of screen time, though. Surprising number of screen time. His subplot doesn't seem as important, but it sort of carries through the entire movie and then culminates in this weird scene that kind of just ends. Yeah, I liked it. So I would recommend Unfrosted. And again, the nice thing about it, it's 90 minutes, you know. It's not too long, doesn't wear out its welcome. Just by the end of it, I was a little tired and like, okay, let's wrap this up. But overall, got some good laughs out of it. I think probably the first act is the strongest. But the second act is solid. And the third act, by that time you're in it enough to stay to the end, I think. So yeah, I'd like to see Jerry do another movie and direct it, because he obviously knows comedy. And a lot of the people in this movie, you know, cast-wise, I've seen them in a lot of stuff that's not funny, you know, even though some of them are comedians. You know, Amy Schumer doing a lot of not funny stuff. Cedric the Entertainer, and he was funny in it too. I mean, you know, they at least get a good bit out of, you know, these performers, and you know, it's I think mostly due to Jerry's sense of the comedy, and that's what's really been missing. Besides the fact there hasn't been many comedies, the ones that do seem to eke out aren't very funny. You know, they don't have a good sensibility. Now again, Jerry's older, and there's a little bit of member berries going on in this movie, but you know, you can see that he has the sense of what needs to happen. It needs to be a little loose. The comedy bits, like Bill Burr doing JFK, is perfect. You know, getting him to do JFK, and then the guy who does, I forget who does Walter Cronkite. He's very funny, and he just does these wacky bits, kind of like as he's muttering to himself while the news cameras are off, and it's kind of funny. And then they just push some of the bits right off a cliff, which is again something you should do in a comedy, and a comedy like this where you don't have to worry about reality, because the entire movie's framed on the fact that Seinfeld's character is telling the story, and he can be completely exaggerating to a little kid, so it's perfectly fine when he reveals that UNIVAC, the computer, was sent to Vietnam, where his views got even more strange and twisted, and then you see UNIVAC in the swamps of Vietnam. I thought that was a funny bit. So yeah, it's called Unfrosted, and it's currently running on Netflix. Bring us more comedy, Jerry. We're starving out here. And that's it for me, Tony D, and Little Joan, just off camera. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure you turn into the live stream where we do it live, and hopefully do some comedy as well. We'll be going over to the box office, talking about Hollywood, talking about most other movies that aren't nearly as good as this. So we'll see you on the live stream.